Have a good day at school, kids.
Man, it's scary every time our kids leave our sides, isn't it?
I know what you mean, man. You can hurt me, but not my kids.
Well, today's road trip is going to be a rough one, Ray.
Oh, okay, why is that?
Because we're heading to Pembroke, New Hampshire to investigate the Pembroke murder pillar. Hi, I'm Jeff Belanger, and welcome to episode 111 of the New England Legends podcast. If you give us about 10 minutes, we'll give you something strange to talk about today.
And I'm Ray Auger. Thanks for joining us on our mission to chronicle every legend in New England, 1 week and one story at a time. And a special thanks to our Patreon patrons who are sponsoring this week's episode. If you go to patreon.com/New England Legends, for just $3 per month, you'll get early access to new episodes, plus extra bonus episodes and content that no one else gets to hear.
We also want to tell you guys about our website. It's ournewenglandlegends.com. That's O-U-R, newenglandlegends.com. Each episode has its own page. There's photos related to the stories, places to leave feedback and contact us. There's video clips from the New England Legends television series on PBS and Amazon Prime. There's dates for my ongoing story tour, a link to buy our brand new 2020 Haunted New England wall calendar, and now each podcast episode page will include a transcript of the show so our deaf friends can also experience these stories.
Such a cool feature.
Yeah.
And speaking of contacting us through our website, we got an email from Craig Hiltz, who first told us about the Pembroke murder pillar. And that's why we're heading up here today. And just a quick note to people who may be listening with younger children, though all true, this episode deals with the darkest side of humanity.
Yeah.
If you're sensitive, you might want to skip this one.
So we'll just pull the car onto Academy Road here, right by the Pembroke Academy, and it's supposed to be just up ahead there, right across the street from the entrance to the Three Rivers School.
I see the school on our right.
Yeah.
There's the entrance, but I don't see any... Oh, wait a minute. There's something set back there just beyond the tree line.
Oh, man, that's easy to miss, isn't it? All right, let's pull over and take a look.
Jeff, I bet most people just drive right past this place and never see it.
Maybe 30 feet back from the road, just under some overhanging branches, there's this stone obelisk. Let's go take a closer look. Go ahead and read the inscription, Ray.
Okay, it says, erected by the citizens of Pembroke and vicinity to commemorate the place of the tragic death and memory of Josie Langmaid, a student at Pembroke Academy who was murdered on her way to school on the 4th day of October, 1875, aged 17 years, 10 months, and 27 days. Well, I can tell you already, this is going to be a heart-wrenching story.
Yeah, it gets worse. Read the inscription on this side of the obelisk.
All right, it says, body found 90 feet north at Stone Hub. Head found 82 rods north at Stone Hub.
82 rods would be about 450 feet.
Man, that's really horrible.
It is, and there's one more inscription on the other side.
All right. This one reads, death lies on her like an untimely frost upon the sweetest plow of all the field.
Yeah. So tons of people in this town drive by here, and they don't even notice this pillar. Or maybe they see it, but they don't know what it's here for. And I can tell you that just about every middle schooler right across the street there at the school, they know about the Pembroke murder pillar, and most parents hear about this thing from their kids.
All right, let's head back to October of 1875 and find out what happened. It's October of 1875 here in Pembroke, New Hampshire. We're at the home of James Langmaid. He's a farmer and a predominant man in the community. James and his wife, Sarah, have had 4 children together, but sadly 2 of them died very young.
Yeah.
Ella died in 1862 at the age of 1, and Clarence died in 1863, also at the age of 1.
That's terrible.
Their remaining children are Waldo, age 16, and Josie, age 17. Both kids attend the Pembroke Academy for their schooling.
The morning of October 4th is brisk, but typical of a fall day in New Hampshire. Now, usually Josie and Waldo walk to school together, though sometimes Josie will wait for a friend of hers and the girls walk together. Today, though, Waldo left for school a little bit early, and Josie's friend, well, she decided to take a carriage ride to school, which explains why she hasn't shown up yet at the Langmaid house. So pretty soon, Josie realizes she's on her own and better get moving on her 2.5-mile walk to school or she's going to be late. What Josie doesn't know is that there's a monster waiting for her in the woods along the path to school.
From here, we're going to jump back 1 month to September. There's this local guy named William Drew. He's 24 years old, and Pembroke locals consider him a ne'er-do-well. He's a creep. He's known to make inappropriate remarks at the young ladies who pass by, and one of those young ladies is Josie Langmaid.
Except Josie doesn't put up with his remarks for 1 minute. She threatens to tell her father the awful things this man just said, and that turns William Drew stone-faced. He tells Josie if she tells her father, he'll kill her and cut her into little pieces.
All right, from here we're going to jump back about 1 year to St. Albans, Vermont, which is about 180 miles northwest of Pembroke. St. Albans is still in shock because recently a young school teacher named Marietta Ball has been raped and murdered. A homemade mask was found nearby. Locals believe a man named Joseph LePage is behind this awful crime, but they lack the evidence to lock him up.
Now, LePage is from Quebec, and he speaks very little English. He moved to St. Albans with his wife and children looking for work. After locals suspected him of rape and murder, he couldn't take the dirty looks and the whispers anymore, so he left town. He had to get far away from St. Albans to a place where no one knows him.
So LePage makes his way down to Suncook, just south of Pembroke, New Hampshire, and finds work as a woodcutter. He's employed by Joe Daniels.
Okay, now we're jumping back ahead to 9 a.m. on the morning of October 4th, 1875. And Josie Langmaid hasn't shown up for school today. Nobody takes too much notice, after all. I mean, some kids miss school. But when school finishes that afternoon, Waldo notices that his sister isn't there. So he figures, well, maybe she didn't feel well and she must have stayed home. But when he returns home from school and finds his sister isn't home either, he informs his parents that Josie wasn't in school, and now there's a moment of panic.
As we said before, the Langmaids are well-liked and well-respected in these parts.
Yeah.
When they put the word out to their nearest neighbors that Josie is missing, word spreads pretty quickly. And soon, almost 100 men assemble to search the route from the Langmaid house to the Pembroke school.
It's late afternoon when the search begins. Soon, night falls, and the men continue their search, now by torchlight. The search party is covering all the ground, all the way to the Pembroke school. It's around 9 p.m. that night that the group is within half a mile of the school when their worst fears come true.
Over here!
The body of Josie Langmaid has been found. Her clothes have been torn and bloodied. She's cut to pieces, and her head is nowhere to be found.
The scene is awful, a parent's worst nightmare. After a night of almost no sleep, and with the help of daylight, the search continues. Josie's head is soon discovered about a quarter of a mile from where the body was discovered. It was wrapped in Josie's blue cape. Her face had been cut, and the killer left a boot mark on her face. Nearby on the road, searchers find a 3-foot-long wooden club broken and bloodied. It's been determined that Josie was raped.
So the town is outraged, as you can imagine. They want justice. They want blood. And they want it now. One of Josie's teachers had heard a story circulating the previous month and was quick to mention the name William Drew to investigators. He'd threatened Josie directly.
And when Drew catches wind that the police were looking for him, well, he takes off.
And now everyone thinks they have their man. I mean, if he's not guilty, why go running?
Police quickly catch up to William Drew on the road to Concord and arrest him. It doesn't take long for investigators to confirm he has a solid alibi. People can vouch he was with him on the day of October 4th.
Yeah, but that alibi does not satisfy the angry mob. No one likes this guy anyway, and now a girl is dead.
So the local police put William Drew in jail. Not for guilt, but to protect him from the lynch mob. The police in Pembroke are angry too, but they want to make damn sure they have the right man, not just any man.
Private investigators are hired as word of this heinous crime spreads through the newspapers. Then, on October 8th, they get a break in the case. The selectmen of St. Albans, Vermont send a wire saying this case sounds eerily similar to the Marietta Ball case from a year ago. They warn that they might want to be on the lookout for a man named Joseph LePage.
On October 13th, the investigation team arrives at Joseph LePage's house to arrest him. Inside, they find his coat stained with blood. They also discover that the heel of his boot matches the tracing of the boot mark on Josie Langmaid's face.
Joe Daniels, Joseph's employer, is quick to tell police that, LePage had been with him the whole day in the woodlot working. But LePage had already told police he was lost in the woods that morning on his way to work.
It's important to get a little context here.
Okay.
Over in Suncook, there's a large French community.
All right.
LePage and Daniels both live there. They're used to discrimination and harassment, so of course Daniels will look out for one of his own.
Okay.
His first assumption is this must be some kind of shakedown.
But the police are already convinced they have their man. On October 28th, Joseph LePage is indicted for the murder, rape, and mutilation of Josie Langmaid.
For the Langmaids, the nightmare is far from over. Young Waldo sinks into a deep depression. He never stopped blaming himself for not being by his sister's side that morning.
Oh, yeah.
By November, Waldo gets ill. It's typhoid, which turns to pneumonia. On December 15th, 1875, Waldo slips away and dies.
Oh, this poor family. And they still have a murder trial to face.
Now, the case goes to trial January 4th, 1876. Though the evidence is mostly circumstantial, there's a lot of it. A witness claimed to see LePage walking along Academy Road carrying a club on the morning of the murder. Then LePage's sister-in-law came down from Canada to testify that 5 years earlier, a man wearing a homemade mask had raped her in a field. She pulled the mask off to reveal LePage.
The jury is quick to deliver a guilty verdict. But LePage's lawyer appealed the case, claiming the testimony of the sister-in-law has nothing to do with this case. And the verdict is thrown out.
Oh, you're kidding me.
No.
Come on, LePage must be the guy.
So LePage is tried again. And while waiting for the trial to begin, James Langmaid is waiting outside the courtroom speaking with two police officers. And that's when Joseph LePage is brought toward the building wearing chains. Josie's father is practically vibrating with rage. He's fighting every impulse coursing through his icy veins. And that's when the officer next to him speaks up.
For God's sake, Cliff, give Langmaid your gun and let him in the business right here.
The officer now has to fight every impulse he has to allow the grieving father to serve justice for himself. Fortunately, though, cooler heads prevail, and the second trial also ends in a guilty verdict. On March 14th, 1878, the day before his set execution in Concord, New Hampshire, Joseph LePage speaks to French priests and confesses to the rape and murder of Josie Langmaid and Marietta Ball. He gives details where he hid some of Josie's possessions, which are found the following day, proving the man now hanging from the end of a rope in Concord was indeed the monster lurking in the woods.
The people of Pembroke erect this monument so they never forget what happened to one of their children. And that brings us back to today. Jeff, this is dark.
Yeah.
As a dad, I can't imagine what this horror must have been like for that Langmaid family. But are we moving into true crime here? How is this a legend?
So the legend takes over where the newspaper accounts stopped back in the late 1870s. This monument sits here, often ignored, but once in a while a brave kid gingerly walks up to the stone that looks like so many in local cemeteries, and he reads the details. That kid tells another kid, and then another. At recess and outdoor gym classes, they point across the street, and it's in those moments that they understand that sometimes monsters are real, and they lurk as close as your schoolyard.
Rest in peace, Josie Langmaid. May this never happen again here in Pembroke or anywhere else.
Yeah, and sadly, it has happened again and likely will in the future. But maybe talking about this story might help our kids be a little more cautious when they're out of our sight.
If you enjoy hearing our stories each week, please consider telling a friend or two.
Yeah.
Or posting a review on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Spotify, or wherever you listen to us. It's also free to subscribe, so if you don't already, do it.
And would like to thank Scott Marcus of the brand new Fantastic Story Society podcast for lending his voice acting talents this week. And our theme music is by John Judd.
And feel free to call or text our legend line anytime at 617-444-9683. And just like John, maybe you can leave our closing on a future episode.
Hi, this is John Gately from Framingham, Massachusetts. Until next time, remember, the bizarre is closer than you think.